I'm Dorothea Gregor, and I'm the project manager with Canadian Organic Growers for the Regenerative Organic Oats program. Our first goal is to bring producers together, specifically organic producers who are looking to transition to becoming regenerative organic producers. Our second goal is to help those producers by bringing together resources for them, because the one thing all farmers don't have is time. So there's a ton of amazing resources out on the internet, in books, everywhere. So we're hoping to bring them all together so there's one easy place for them to find what they're looking for. Also bringing them access to some technical experts. So we do online webinars with our producers where they're given the opportunity to interact with these specialists or experts, if you will, and ask their questions directly. Other than, the network is huge because then they can learn from one another, which is often the best way. We also have a lot of soil sampling that goes on. So we're able to help direct them in creating their own baselines so that they have the data to see if what they're doing truly is regenerative. Because the only way to measure whether you're regenerative is if you're actually regenerating the soil. So you have to see a difference. The practices and the principles are important, but it's that difference that you're making that's really key to being a regenerative producer.
The Regenerative Oats program, I guess, to kind of explain it, we meet several times a year over the summer. It's nice we're able to come out here and have these field days and go around and take a look at different people's fields, see how they're working, see the different management practices they're implementing, and what's working for them. It's good. We're seeing successes as well as failures, and I think the failures are just as important. See maybe what doesn't work or what hasn't been working well, and then you can kind of avoid doing that. And then going into the winter, we're able to meet several times, a lot of times just over Zoom calls, but kind of talk about things. I know spring, summer, and fall is generally pretty busy for most producers. So, I mean, we're able to get out here occasionally in the summer to meet, but then when it gets to winter and everything's kind of wrapping up for around the yard and in the field, we are able to meet and kind of talk about what we found over the growing season and discuss that with everybody.
So I had looked at the Regenerative Organic certification in before, and I got on board with that. Then when I heard about the Regenerative Organic Oats program, I thought, well, that's exactly what I do. So let's see what I can get out of that. And it's by far been an eye-opener. And that's always a good thing when you get into a new program, that you want to be able to intake more education. And that's one of the key things is education, because it's a new avenue that's being introduced in now. So education to the farmer, education to the consumer is going to be key.
Well, for me, the highlight of joining the RU program is the sharing of ideas, definitely. And whether it's the Zoom call meetings or the tour, it's sharing ideas, because everybody's got a different way that they're doing things. And when you get that little seed of an idea about and want to make it available to your own farm, there's always ways to change it. And we really build on communicating and sharing those ideas. So that's what I find the best, is just the sharing of ideas.
I gotta say, the program's been interesting. I got a lot more out of it than I expected. Lots of good information. I was looking for information on biology, and I wasn't sure I would see a lot of that, but we've had some great speakers and very good information. Have I seen anything on the farm yet? Not so much, but we're just starting, so we're trying something new. Enjoying the program. I've met some interesting people. Hopefully pick up some new knowledge, highlights of the program. A lot of new stuff. Just it's interesting when you're doing something new, and a lot of it makes sense. Things that I guess it'd be more like how my grandpa farmed. I grew up farming with fertilizers and chemicals, and that's the knowledge I knew. But yeah, it's exciting to do something that seems to work. Yeah, it's exciting.
We're looking at our soils, we're looking at what we're doing, and we're seeing over time that there's some degradation to the quality of the soil. So we're starting to look for other answers. How can we improve our fertility and reduce our weed pressures by improving our soils? So then we went searching and learned about regenerative practices and thought, well, this is what we need to start implementing if we want to go get ahead, not go backwards.
What I found under the Regenerative Organic Oats program is the healing of the soil is critical to what is needed, and we're starting to finally get recognition and education in with it. That's really critical in my view on with it, because the more that people will be able to understand what is going on in their soil, the more that they will understand the detriments that have been happening over the last 40, 50 years in with it. So with reference to healing the soil, the regenerative program is critical.
We need to rebuild the soil. We need to make more soil. If we wait for geology to do it, we're talking thousands of years. We don't have that time. But if we access the biology, so our crops, the microorganisms that live underground, our livestock, our wildlife, and put those to work to really focus on rebuilding soil health and viewing the soil as not just a growth medium, but as an ecosystem that can function for us, that is how we're going to address, resiliency through changes in climate. We're going to address resiliency to extreme weather events. We're going to be able to bounce back not because of what we do, but because what our soil can do for us. So it's going to become resilient. As an added bonus, how we do that is pulling carbon from the air through plants and putting it in the ground. So we have all heard climate change, too much carbon in the air. Why not put it to work for us in the ground? And that's really the power of Regen Ag, is that potential to take a problem and actually make it work for us and make it a solution.
If NASA would only took 1/10 of its budget and looked down for life rather than up, just think how much farther we'd be ahead. And it's the truth that once you start looking for that life of the soil, it's pretty incredible what the things that are going on there. So we just have to enhance the soil life in the soil. And it used to be a medium soil, but now even in conventional agriculture, everybody's looking at the life of the soil, and it's pretty incredible the things that can be done with that.
Thinking more about biology, more diversity is probably the biggest thing we've done. We've done a little bit in the past, different mixes with our crops to create diversity for the biology in the soil. Before, when you thought about soil, it was adding chemical fertilizers. Now it's not about that. It's feeding what's in the soil. Planting different blends of things to feed what's in the soil. Keeping things green all the time. Just a little what my grandparents would have did. So they would have seen that by observation, and I don't know, nowadays we're too busy to see it.
So like I said, I've been certified organic for a very long time, and I wasn't getting the results that my intention was. Organic was no chemicals, no fertilizer. That was always the premise on with it. But I wasn't seeing the biological growth within the soil that I was hoping to. We would do green manures and stuff, but we would still not get the proper biology within the soil. So under the regenerative avenue, we started planting different clovers, different grasses. We do 1 year on, 1 year off. So we underseed different grass blends in with our oats, and we harvest our oats in the fall, And then the following year, we let that cover crop grow up. And then in the fall, we work it under, get it ready for the next year. So we do approximately 1,000 acres, 500 on, 500 off. We keep switching back and forth. Over the years, I've noticed tremendous, like we did with that penetrometer, and I've worked with that, and just by doing that, just over the minimal 3 years, we've seen really increase in loss of compaction.
We started with organic and just went into regenerative organic, and it's markets look interesting. We're a smaller farm. We're trying to get into niche markets and something that the mainstream guys don't do so that we can keep our farm profitable, like trying different things. So yeah, something different.
We've been organic for about 20 years or 18 years or so, and the regenerative thing, which really looks at the soil biology, the life of the soil, is always interesting in organics. So, and the big push in organics is the move to reduce tillage. And so by reducing tillage too, we're leaving those microorganisms alone to regenerate. And we definitely know that it's the best thing for the soil.
I think right now we're early enough that we're not necessarily seeing the successes, but we're understanding what's going on. So we're seeing where maybe some of the things we were doing served a purpose, but weren't necessarily good practices in the long term. So now we're able to look at it through a different lens and see what we're going to do and why a tool might or might not fit into the best practices that we're hoping to achieve, or think about what we're doing differently, or really gather the right data to see where we're at and where we're progressing to.
We've been organic since I've started farming. My dad made the transition from conventional over to organic quite a while ago, before I was too involved, so I've only ever really known the organic side of things. And then in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of push for more regenerative and sustainable practices. And then we kind of got involved with this Regenerative Organic Oats group a couple of years back. And it's a good group of producers, and we're learning lots and picking up lots of new things from that.
We've been organic for about 20 years or 18 years or so, and the regenerative thing, which really looks at the soil biology, the life of the soil, is always interesting in organics. So, and the big push in organics is the move to reduce tillage. And so by reducing tillage too, we're leaving those microorganisms alone to regenerate. And we definitely know that it's the best thing for the soil. The big thing for us is the whole thing on working to reduce tillage. And we see instant benefits from that, because when we're doing a green manure crop, we're usually doing just a little bit too much tillage to get that green manure worked in and decomposed in order for the next year. But there's so many different ways to do it with still leaving all that organic matter on the top of the soil, which is so beneficial for erosion, whether it be wind erosion or water erosion. But it's also much more beneficial for the soil microorganisms too.
Probably the most exciting for us is being able to reduce our tillage with organic production. We really have relied on a lot of tillage in the past for weed control. And then over the past couple of years, focusing on more regenerative practices, we have been able to significantly reduce that tillage in our fields while maintaining the good control of weed populations. It's helped a little bit with efficiency for sure. We're having to go out onto the fields a little bit less time in the tractor and more time that we're relying on plants to take care of the weed control rather than through tillage. So that's nice. That frees up a bit of time for us. Other advantages, I mean, it's cost savings as well, not having to be running a tractor across the fields all the time to keep the fields clean. We're able to plant different mixtures of crops. We rely a lot on green manures, alfalfa and clover being the two main perennials we're kind of relying on to take care of the weeds and allow us to sit back a little bit.
The highlight probably the program is the access to people who know a lot more about this than we do in the scientific knowledge and background. The people, the soil health experts and so on that have been part of the program, is having access to that knowledge base. And then the network of people involved. We've got our group chat with the farmers involved in the program. And so if you get questions or thoughts or whatever, people will chuck a question out into the group chat, and then you get a discussion going on and people's suggestions. Oh, I've tried this or I've tried that. So, it's sort of developing a network of people to bounce the ideas off of and try and not duplicate everybody's mistakes, but rather learn from everybody else's experimenting.
It's great to get together with a group of people like-minded that can share ideas, and we learn lots, like tours like this, that we're getting together and sharing information.
Well, one of the highlights is having so many different groups come together. We're starting with farmers and producers from all around Saskatchewan and Alberta. We're getting milling companies like MGM and Bay State involved, as well as having end consumers like Riverside and Nature's Paths out here today as well. And having all three of those different parts of the chain come together and see what's all involved is nice to be able to take a tour. Yesterday we brought everybody through the plant, through our milling facility in Saskatoon, and now we're out here at the farm taking a look at where the oats start off.
Last year, one of the things we integrated some livestock in. It's not our own livestock yet, but we ended up having our cover crops custom grazed. And so one of the things I've noticed this year is where we've got things custom grazed, the peas are doing better because we cycled the nutrients more effectively. And we're seeing less thistle pressure there, where last year there was some thistle pressure even in the cover crops. So we're starting to see, probably even just in that 1 year, a little bit of a change in what's going on biologically on that land. I think really the one that we saw was the results of integrating the livestock in, of having those cover crops grazed, where we're seeing changes in what the weed pressure is this year, or reduced weed pressure, maybe the peas starting off better. But this is really our second year in the program, so this is really still at the experimental stage and trying to figure out what works.
One of the advantages that I've seen, that's me personally, that I've seen with biodiversity, with different plant species that you're incorporating into the soil, we're able to feel what the soil is. We can see everything outside, what is going on, but we're not being quite aware of what goes on under the ground. And with the Regenerative Organic Oats program, that allows us to get a little more in depth to it. One of the funny things is, because I do all types of different grass blends, the neighbors start talking, thinking that it's weeds or something. So we had the soil or the weed inspectors come out, and then they discover that it's actually grasses. So it's always a good giggle. Probably biggest success is understanding that not only are we providing health for the consumer, but we're providing health for the soil. And that's key for long-term longevity. If we want to look at 50 years, 100 years down the road, we need to change our practices to the regenerative side.
Because with regenerative ag, there's always going to be a next step. There's always opportunity for learning, and there's always opportunity for doing something differently, something better, something modified based on the weather, the time of the year, what crops you decide to grow, the value you're placing on your land, how the soil's responding, whether you suddenly have livestock, whether you got rid of your livestock. So that constantly changing context of the environment, plus the constantly changing context of your own life. If you suddenly had a baby, that changes what you might be able to put into the farm. But it's still doable, just a bit differently, right? So That's, I think, the power of RU, because you can talk to people who are coming up and bringing up babies, and others who are more on the retirement age, and see how Regen Ag can fit across the spectrum. Our biggest takeaway for being regenerative is to always be asking questions and always making observations, and know that we don't have an end point. There's no final goal. There's no number we're gonna assess you on. You're not doing bad. You're not doing, horrible. You're not at the wrong stage. We aren't grading you. You're just progressing. And it's that progression that really is important. And you can only really compare yourself to yourself. So not even to your neighbor, not to the guy in Kansas, not to the guys who are doing stuff in Australia, just to yourself. And when you see and measure that progression, that's really when you can say that you're a regenerative farmer.